The Vera 9 mining colony hung like a small pearl in the cold black of space. Its metallic spires caught the faint light of the distant star, glinting like warning signs. To anyone looking at it from afar, it seemed almost fragile, just a collection of buildings and landing pads, a few shuttle bays, and the winding tunnels that burrowed deep into the planet's surface to mine its precious ores. But the humans who lived there knew differently. The colony had its own rhythm, its own defenses, and its own stubborn heartbeat. And today that heartbeat would be tested. Lieutenant Mara Trent stood on the observation deck, her eyes tracing the stars beyond the reinforced glass. She was not a large woman, not by any standard, but there was a quiet intensity in her presence that made people stop and listen. Her uniform was simple, marked with the insignia of the Vera 9 Settlers Militia, but the way she held herself told a story older than any badge. Experience, patience, and a mind that never stopped calculating. "They're here," came the voice of Jax, her second in command. A wiry man with a crooked smile and a habit of fidgeting with his tools. "Sensors picked them up 5 minutes ago and they're bringing the whole fleet." Mara didn't flinch. Her gaze remained steady on the approaching dots of movement, the alien shapes that grew larger with every passing second. The Zorath, a mercenary faction notorious across the outer systems for raiding weak colonies, stealing resources, and leaving chaos behind. Most species gave them a wide berth, avoided conflict, or simply surrendered what they demanded. Not humans, not here. "They think we're weak," Mara said, her voice calm, almost too calm. "They think this is going to be easy." Jax frowned. "You really think we can stop them?" "Look at that fleet, they're massive." "They're massive," Mara agreed. "But they aren't humans." She turned from the viewport to face her team. And that's what they're about to learn. The Zorath ships began their descent, their hulls reflecting the dim light like jagged teeth ready to bite. Their language crackled through the comms, a mixture of sharp clicks and low rumbles that made the air vibrate. Jax adjusted the settings, trying to make sense of it, but Mara didn't bother listening. She didn't need a translation to know the message. "We are coming for you. Surrender or die." Mara allowed herself a small smile. "Let them come," she said. "We've been ready for this longer than they know." Inside the colony, workers paused their routines, glancing at the skyports and the distant red horizon. The humans of Vera 9 were not soldiers, not all of them, but they were clever, resilient, and, most importantly, unpredictable. Even the miners, the engineers, the shuttle pilots, all of them knew enough about the terrain, the tunnels, and the colony's systems to make life difficult for any invader who assumed weakness. On the surface, the first Zorath ships landed with mechanical precision, their armored legs making soft thuds against the metal plates of the landing zones. A few Zorath warriors emerged, tall, sinewy creatures with chitinous plating and glinting eyes that reflected a predatory intelligence. They looked around with disdain, sniffing the air as if they could smell the humans' fear. "They're cocky," Jax muttered. "Good," Mara replied. "Let them be cocky. It will make the first mistake easier to exploit." The Zorath leader, a towering figure with segmented armor and blades extending from its forearms, stepped forward and broadcast a message through the colony's comm channels. The translation module struggled, but the meaning was clear. "Humans, surrender your resources now and no harm will come to you." Mara's lips curled into a faint grin. She pressed a button on her console, overriding the comm channels. "Attention, Zorath," she said, her voice calm but firm. "We are humans of Vera 9. We do not surrender. You are about to learn why that is a mistake." There was a pause, a ripple of confusion across the alien ranks. The Zorath were used to fear, to seeing species crumble under the weight of their intimidation. These humans, they were different. They didn't flinch. They didn't beg. They simply stared back. From beneath the colony, the tunnels that Mara and her team had prepared lay ready. They were not simple mining shafts. They had been reinforced, rigged with traps, and linked in ways that made navigation difficult for outsiders. Sensors had been placed to detect movement, and strategically positioned drones hovered silently, waiting for commands. Every inch of the colony had a plan, a human plan. Mara turned to her team. "Remember, we aren't just defending. We are showing them what humans can do. They came thinking we were easy prey. They're about to find out they were wrong." Jax looked uneasy but nodded. "Let's hope it's enough." Mara smiled, not at him but at the challenge itself. It's more than enough. The first confrontation was small, almost insignificant in the grand scheme, but it was enough to send the message. A group of Zorath soldiers attempted to enter the main storage bay, expecting little resistance. But Mara had anticipated this. As the aliens approached, alarms blared, lights flashed red, and the floor beneath them triggered a trap that sent magnetic nets whipping up, tangling their limbs. Small drones swarmed, releasing smoke and blinding flashes. The aliens roared in confusion, unused to this level of resistance from a species they considered weak. "They think this is a game," Jack said, ducking under the doorway after the drones had retreated. "It's a game," Mara replied, her eyes scanning the chaotic scene. "And humans play it differently." Outside, the Zorath commander observed the scene, frowning. He tapped his claws against the console, his mind racing. How could these humans, so small and unarmed compared to his warriors, create such havoc? But pride, arrogance, and the memory of past victories kept him from retreating. He barked orders, sending more soldiers into the fray. But every step they took was anticipated, every tactic countered. The humans used the environment, turning walls, ceilings, and even mining equipment into weapons. By the end of the first day, the Zorath had suffered losses they hadn't expected. And Mara? She walked through the colony, calm and collected, acknowledging her people's efforts with a nod here, a brief word there. Every human she passed carried a spark of pride, a spark that grew as the day went on. Mara knew this was only the beginning. The Zorath were persistent, and they would return with larger forces, more firepower and renewed arrogance. But for the humans of Vera 9, today had proven something vital. They were not prey. They were a species that refused to bend, that refused to cower, and above all, they were capable of using their minds in ways the Zorath could not anticipate. As the colony settled into a tense night, lights blinking against the darkness of space, Mara stood again on the observation deck. The stars looked the same, distant and cold, but Mara felt a warmth in her chest. It was not fear. It was the quiet certainty of a species ready to defend itself, ready to fight, ready to surprise the universe, and somewhere, deep in the hulls of the retreating Zorath forces, doubt had begun to grow. For the humans of Vera 9, the battle had just begun, but already they were winning in ways the Zorath could never have imagined. Mara whispered to herself, almost as if the stars could hear. "Big mistake. You picked a fight with the wrong species." The night was long, filled with whispers, planning, and anticipation. But for Mara and her people, it was a night of hope. A night when humans reminded themselves of a truth they had always known. No matter how small, no matter how underestimated, humans adapt. Humans endure, humans survive, and if anyone dared to challenge them, they would learn that survival was only the beginning. The morning light of Vera 9 painted the mining colony in shades of copper and silver. But the beauty of the sunrise was lost on the Zorath. Their ships lingered above the surface, dark silhouettes against the rising star. They had underestimated the humans, and every passing hour made that mistake more apparent. Inside the colony, Lieutenant Mara Trent moved swiftly through the tunnels. She checked sensor readings, confirmed trap alignments, and coordinated with her team. Every human here, from engineers to shuttle pilots, was now part of the defense. The Zorath may have thought this was a simple raid, but the humans were about to show them it was anything but. "Lieutenant," Jax called from the control hub. "We've identified their supply lines. They're vulnerable. If we hit them here, we can slow the reinforcements." Mara leaned over the console, studying the schematics. "Good," she said. "But I want more than slow. I want confusion. Make them question every step they take." The humans moved like shadows, silent and precise. Teams slipped into positions above and below the ground, placing sensor-guided charges, deploying drones and adjusting lighting systems to create optical illusions. Every tool, every device, every scrap of mining equipment had been adapted for defense. Humans were masters of improvisation, and today they would prove it. By midday, the first Zorath patrols ventured into the colony's tunnels, expecting to find empty corridors and frightened humans. Instead, they found traps that stopped their advance, tunnels that twisted in impossible patterns, and drones that struck from unexpected angles. They were skilled warriors, yes, but their training had never prepared them for this kind of environment. A squad of humans, led by Mara herself, waited near a junction where 3 tunnels met. Using low-calorie flash grenades and magnetic nets, They incapacitated the leading Zorath patrol without causing permanent harm. It was precise, efficient, and humiliating for the aliens. Why aren't they afraid? One of the Zorath whispered, his voice trembling under the helmet's filter. They should be, another replied. They should be dead by now, but they adapt too quickly. Mara watched them from a hidden alcove, her calm demeanor betraying none of the satisfaction she felt. Humans thrived under pressure. They learned, adjusted, and used every disadvantage as a weapon. She remembered her training days, the countless simulations where she had learned to anticipate every move, to predict every outcome. But this was real, and her people were proving that reality favored the clever, not the strong. Outside, the surface teams executed their own tactics. Engineers rigged mining equipment to create temporary barricades, while shuttle pilots performed maneuvers to distract and confuse the enemy. Every human action, though small, had a ripple effect across the Zorath formations. The aliens were disciplined, but they were not used to chaos orchestrated with purpose. By late afternoon, reports began to arrive of Zorath units retreating from positions they had previously controlled. Mara analyzed the data. They're starting to doubt themselves, she said quietly. Good. Let's keep it that way. She gathered a strike team of her best humans, scouts, engineers, and a few former militia members, and led them toward the main Zorath landing area. Their mission was simple: sabotage the alien vehicles and force the Zorath to rethink their strategy. The operation began with precision. Scouts infiltrated the perimeter, avoiding sensors and using the environment for cover. Engineers rigged the vehicle's engines and control systems with harmless but highly effective disabling devices. Within minutes, several Zorath dropships were immobilized. When the Zorath tried to activate them, alarms blared and controls malfunctioned. Confusion spread like wildfire. The aliens shouted orders, but their commands were misinterpreted, delayed, or completely ignored due to the humans' interference with their systems. It was not destruction. They had no intention of unnecessary bloodshed, but the message was clear. Humans were clever, relentless, and unpredictable. Back in the tunnels, Mara received a message from one of her scouts. Lieutenant, we've got Zorath in the southern sector. They're trying to regroup, but they're hesitant. Mara smiled. Hesitation in the enemy was as good as victory. Keep them guessing. Use the tunnels. Make them waste time. Every second they hesitate is a second we control. As night approached, the colony's defenses had transformed into a labyrinth of unpredictability. The Zorath, who had arrived confident and sure, were now spread thin, confused, and cautious. For the first time, they considered the humans not as prey, but as a real threat. In the command hub, Mara addressed her team. Today, we've shown them that humans are more than what they see. We've fought smart, not just hard. Tomorrow, we push further. We make them regret every step they've taken. Jax leaned back in his chair, rubbing his eyes. They're starting to fear us. Can you believe it? Mara nodded. Fear is useful, but overconfidence is fatal. We must stay one step ahead. Meanwhile, the Zorath commander convened with his officers in the command deck of their main ship. The humans' tactics had shocked them. They had anticipated resistance, yes, but nothing like this. The aliens were disciplined fighters, but human creativity and resilience were something their simulations had not predicted. This is unexpected, one officer admitted. They are not surrendering. They are not running, and they keep striking back in ways we cannot anticipate. The commander's segmented eyes glinted with frustration. Then we adapt. We crush them. We must show them their place. No species defies the Zorath and lives. Back on the surface, Mara knew the Zorath would escalate. Their confidence was shaken, yes, but pride and stubbornness would drive them to try harder. And that was exactly what she expected. Humans thrived against the impossible, against challenges that others thought insurmountable. They learned from every encounter, improvised every solution, and turned disadvantages into strength. A young engineer, Tessa, approached Mara with a small tablet. Lieutenant, we've got something. Sensors indicate they're massing near the northern ridge. It looks like they're planning a counterattack. Mara studied the display. Good, let them come. We'll be ready. The humans spent the rest of the night reinforcing their positions, setting up additional traps and ensuring every corridor and access point was monitored. The sense of purpose was tangible. Each human knew their role, each understood the stakes, and each was willing to rise to the challenge. They were not soldiers by training, but they were humans, and that alone made them dangerous. As darkness fell across Vera 9, the first signs of the Zorath's unease became apparent. Ships that had once hovered with arrogance now hovered cautiously. Patrols moved slower, more carefully. Every corner was checked twice and communication was tense. The humans had turned fear into a tool, not just for defense, but for strategy. Mara walked the observation deck one last time, looking out at the fleet of alien ships. She didn't feel fear, nor did she feel hatred. She felt pride for her team, for the settlers, for humanity itself. The Zorath had underestimated them, and that was a mistake they would remember. Tomorrow, Mara whispered to Jax, who stood beside her, we take the next step. We show them that humans don't just fight back. We show them that humans can outsmart, outmaneuver, and outlast anyone who dares to challenge them. Jax nodded. I never thought I'd see a day when aliens feared humans. They don't just fear us, Mara said softly. They're learning respect. And respect is stronger than fear. Respect lasts. As the colony settled into quiet vigilance, the humans prepared for the next wave. Every shuttle, every tunnel, every device was ready. They were ready not just to defend, but to strike. Not just to survive, but to win. And somewhere above, in the dark hulls of the Zorath fleet, the realization began to take root. The humans were not a species to be underestimated. They were clever, adaptable, relentless, and capable of thinking beyond brute force. Every plan the Zorath had made was being undone by ingenuity and spirit. And for the humans of Vera 9, that knowledge was powerful. They had begun to write the rules of this engagement, and the galaxy had yet to see what humans could truly do when cornered, but willing to fight. Mara turned from the observation deck, her eyes alight with determination. The first strikes had been successful, but the real test was yet to come. Tomorrow, the humans would move from defense to offense, showing the Zorath that their arrogance had been a grave mistake, and the words she had spoken before, the ones that would become a quiet warning across the stars, lingered in her mind. Big mistake. You picked a fight with the wrong species. The morning sun of Vera 9 rose slowly, casting long shadows over the colony. The air hung tense with anticipation, for everyone knew the Zorath would not give up easily. Their pride had been wounded, and wounded pride made them dangerous. Mara Trent moved quickly through the control hub, her mind alive with calculations, contingencies, and strategies. Every sensor, every drone, every device in the colony hummed quietly, waiting for orders. Lieutenant, Jack said, tapping the display, their northern squad is moving. They're coordinating for a larger attack. They've realized yesterday's tactics aren't enough. Mara studied the incoming patterns. The Zorath were disciplined, precise, and relentless, but they lacked one key advantage humans had mastered: adaptability. Good, she said. Then we'll adapt faster. The humans had spent the night preparing for this moment. Mining tunnels had been reinforced into labyrinths. Traps were primed. Drones were stationed at every junction, and improvised barricades blocked obvious routes. Mara had also prepared diversion strategies: holographic decoys, sound amplifiers to mimic troop movements, and sensors to mislead the Zorath. Every element of the colony had been transformed into a defensive web designed to confuse, delay, and demoralize the invaders. Outside, the Zorath ships descended with mechanical precision, armored units moving like a tide of shadow across the terrain. Their advanced weaponry glinted in the morning light, deadly and intimidating. But Mara knew that sheer strength would not win this fight. Intelligence, strategy, and human creativity were far more effective weapons. Strike teams ready? Mara asked. Ready, Jack said. Engineers, scouts, and a few militia veterans had positioned themselves strategically across the colony. Their mission: disrupt, confuse, and create openings for counterattacks. Mara took a deep breath. Then we begin. The first clash erupted near the southern mining pits. A group of Zorath warriors moved in to take control of a key transport hub, expecting an easy conquest. But Mara's scouts had anticipated this. Small drones emerged from hidden tunnels, releasing blinding flashes and smoke. Magnetic nets launched from above immobilized the first wave. Traps hidden in the mining equipment disabled weapons and sent the attackers tumbling. Confusion spread quickly among the Zorath ranks. They shouted commands, but the humans had jammed their communication systems. Coordinated attacks faltered, leaving soldiers vulnerable to further traps. Mara's team moved silently, striking only when necessary, guiding the Zorath deeper into areas rigged for disruption. "They're adapting," one Zorath muttered. His segmented eyes widened as another squad fell into a pit lined with reinforced mesh. "But we can't predict them." The Zorath commander, observing from his command ship, slammed a claw against the console. "Then find a way. They are not like any species we have encountered. They are clever." Clever was an understatement. The humans had turned their entire environment into a weapon. Every corridor, every ridge, every mining tunnel became a tool of strategy. Mara herself led a team into the northern ridge, setting up decoys and motion sensors to trick the Zorath into overextending their lines. Small sabotage teams disabled vehicles silently, ensuring that reinforcements arrived late or not at all. Meanwhile, surface teams launched targeted counterattacks. Shuttle pilots performed daring maneuvers, drawing enemy attention away from vulnerable positions. Engineers used mining drills and machinery as improvised projectiles, forcing the Zorath to constantly adjust. The humans were not merely defending, they were dictating the pace, controlling the battlefield without firing a single destructive shot that could cause permanent harm. By mid-afternoon, the Zorath forces were fractured. Groups that had been confident just hours ago now hesitated at every turn. Mara's communication system picked up whispers of doubt. Soldiers questioning commands, officers reconsidering plans, fear creeping into what had been disciplined ranks. The humans were doing more than resisting. They were breaking the Zorath's sense of certainty. "Lieutenant," Jack said, his voice tense, "they're trying to retreat to their ships and regroup." "Good," Mara replied. "We'll make them regret every step." She led a small strike team through a series of hidden tunnels, emerging behind the retreating Zorath units. Using sensors and improvised distractions, they flanked the aliens, blocking their retreat and forcing them into zones already prepared with defensive measures. The humans didn't attack recklessly. Every move was calculated to delay, confuse, and demonstrate superiority without unnecessary violence. The Zorath commander's frustration was evident. He issued a series of rapid orders, but the humans had already predicted the patterns. Mara watched the chaos unfold through live sensor feeds. It was precise, efficient, and satisfying. Not just a tactical victory, but a psychological one. As evening fell, Mara and her team gathered at the observation deck. The Zorath forces were scattered, disorganized, and uncertain. Their pride, once unshakable, had been chipped away by humans who refused to bow. "They're learning," Mara said quietly, almost to herself. "They're learning that strength alone doesn't win battles. Planning, adaptation, and determination matter more." Jack shook his head, still in disbelief. "I've fought simulations, trained for combat, seen invaders before, but I've never seen humans move like this. They think 10 steps ahead," Mara nodded. "That's what makes us dangerous. We anticipate, we adjust, we survive, and in doing so, we make our enemies question everything they thought they knew." Back in the tunnels, Mara's team set up for the night. Traps were rechecked, sensors recalibrated, and drones repositioned. Every precaution was taken, not out of fear, but because humans understood that vigilance was power. Tomorrow, the Zorath would attempt a coordinated attack again, but Mara was ready. They had underestimated her species once, and she intended to make them regret it twice. In the Zorath fleet, tension grew. Officers argued, soldiers complained, and the commander's confidence wavered. The humans were not what they had expected. They were not frightened, not submissive, and not predictable. And the commander began to realize that this was more than a simple raid. It was a fight against a species that refused to be dominated. Meanwhile, the humans of Vera 9 celebrated quietly. Not with loud victory cries, but with the shared satisfaction of having faced a powerful enemy and held their ground. Miners, engineers, pilots, and militia members alike recognized that their combined effort had changed the tide of battle. Small victories, coordinated effort, and clever use of their environment had given them control. Mara walked among them, offering quiet encouragement. "We've done well today," she said, "but this is just the beginning. Tomorrow we strike further. Tomorrow we show them that humans do not only defend, they innovate, adapt, and win." The night sky over Vera 9 was clear, the stars shining cold and distant. But within the colony, there was warmth, determination, and unity. The humans had faced a powerful enemy and turned what seemed impossible into opportunity, and every step they took reinforced the same message that Mara had whispered before the fight began. Big mistake. You picked a fight with the wrong species. As Mara looked out across the colony, she could see small signs of the humans' ingenuity at work. Sensor lights flickering in hidden corridors, drone shadows flitting across walls, and improvised barricades glowing faintly in the dim light. Each one was a silent promise, a demonstration that the humans were not just survivors, they were masters of adaptation, ready to turn every challenge into advantage. She returned to the command hub and reviewed the incoming reports. The Zorath were regrouping, yes, but they were slower, cautious, and clearly shaken. They had underestimated humanity, and that error would continue to haunt them. Mara smiled faintly. This was not just defense, it was education. The Zorath were learning a lesson about the species they had dismissed as weak. Tomorrow would bring another confrontation, more daring maneuvers, and more opportunities to demonstrate the human advantage. But tonight, Mara allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. The humans of Vera 9 had proven that even in the face of superior technology, discipline and numbers, intelligence, creativity, and courage could tip the balance. And somewhere in the dark corridors of the Zorath fleet, that realization was sinking in. They had chosen to challenge humans assuming weakness. They had found cunning, precision, and strategy instead. And they would never forget it. Mara whispered once more, almost as a vow to the stars. They think they control the battle, but we control the outcome, and we will not be defeated. The humans rested that night, readying themselves for the escalation to come. But already the seed of doubt had taken root in the hearts of the Zorath. They had underestimated a species that refused to bend. They had chosen the wrong opponent, and the humans of Vera 9 were just getting started. The sun had barely risen over Vera 9 when Mara Trent stood on the observation deck, scanning the horizon. The Zorath were regrouping, their disciplined formations beginning to show cracks, but they were not yet defeated. Mara knew the real battle was about to begin. Today the humans would move from defense to decisive action. "Lieutenant," Jack said, tapping the console, "their communications show confusion. They're debating whether to attack the colony or retreat to their ships." Mara nodded. "Good. Confusion is the first step to control. Let's give them the second." The plan was risky but calculated. Mara selected a strike team composed of the best scouts, engineers, and former military operatives. Their mission: infiltrate the Zorath flagship, disable their central communications, and broadcast a message showing the humans' cleverness and unity. The goal was simple: turn fear and uncertainty into full-scale psychological advantage. The team moved silently through the tunnels and transport bays, using hidden paths and repurposed mining elevators. Mara's heart remained steady. She had rehearsed this plan countless times, but in reality, no simulation could prepare one fully for confronting a species that seemed superior in technology and numbers. Yet the humans were adaptable, and that was their edge. Above, the Zorath prepared their forces for what they assumed would be a counterattack. They massed troops along the northern ridge and deployed armored vehicles, ready to crush the humans. But Mara anticipated this. Her team's infiltration was already in motion, approaching the flagship undetected. "Sensors clear," whispered Jax through the comms. "No detection yet." Mara led her team aboard the flagship, moving through maintenance shafts and ventilation tunnels. Every step was calculated. The humans knew they were outnumbered, but their strength lay in strategy, precision, and the ability to exploit unexpected weaknesses. Inside the flagship, the humans worked quickly. Engineers disabled key communication relays, while scouts hacked control panels to manipulate lighting and movement. Mara herself accessed the central communication hub, sending out a broadcast to every Zorath vessel in range. The message was clear: humans of Vera 9 are not weak. Your pride has led you to underestimate us. Continue your attack and you will fail. Confusion spread rapidly. Zorath commanders began second-guessing orders. Soldiers hesitated and plans unraveled. The humans had achieved the turning point, not through brute force but by undermining the enemy's confidence. Meanwhile, the surface teams launched coordinated counterattacks. Drones swarmed, diversions distracted patrols, and traps immobilized vehicles. Humans used the terrain and their own inventions to maximum advantage. Every strike was precise, calculated, and non-lethal, designed to frustrate and demoralize. Mara returned to the surface, joining her forces in the midst of the chaos. "Push forward," she commanded. "Show them that humans are not just survivors. We are strategists, innovators, and unstoppable when united." The Zorath were now in full retreat on multiple fronts. Groups that had advanced confidently the day before were trapped, disoriented, or hesitant. Some tried to regroup, only to fall into zones rigged with clever obstacles and diversions. Every move the humans made amplified confusion and fear among the invaders. One squadron of Zorath soldiers attempted a final push toward the colony's central hub. Mara and her team waited in ambush. Using a combination of light-based illusions and controlled drone interference, they created the impression of overwhelming numbers. The aliens faltered, their morale breaking under the pressure of human ingenuity. "Lieutenant," Jack said, watching the Zorath stumble, "they're panicking. Entire squads are retreating." Mara's eyes gleamed. "Good, let them retreat. Let them feel the consequences of underestimating humans." By late afternoon, the Zorath fleet began a disorganized withdrawal. Their disciplined ranks had crumbled under the weight of psychological warfare, clever traps, and relentless human strategy. Mara knew the victory was not just in pushing them back. It was in teaching the galaxy a lesson about humanity's resilience and intelligence. The humans of Vera 9 celebrated quietly, acknowledging the bravery, skill, and creativity that had brought them to this point. Engineers, miners, pilots, and militia members alike shared nods, smiles, and words of encouragement. They had proven themselves not just as survivors, but as a species to be respected. Mara stood once more on the observation deck, looking toward the stars. "They will not forget this," she whispered. "They will know that humans are not to be underestimated. And if they return," she paused, allowing the weight of her words to settle, "we will be ready." That night, the colony rested, repaired, and recalibrated. Mara knew the Zorath were strong and would eventually return in some form. But humanity had gained a decisive advantage, proof of its intelligence, strategy, and courage. For the first time, the humans of Vera 9 could look at the galaxy and understand that their species was capable of far more than others assumed. And somewhere in the Zorath fleet, doubt had taken root, a doubt that would grow with every tale of human resistance. Mara whispered one final time to the night sky, "Big mistake. You picked a fight with the wrong species." The following morning, Vera 9 was quiet but alert. The Zorath had retreated for now, but Mara knew this was temporary. Their pride would not allow them to leave without revenge. Still, the humans had learned something vital. Courage, intelligence, and adaptability could turn the tide even against a stronger enemy. Mara convened her team in the central command hub. "They've underestimated us," she said, tracing their movements on the holomap. "And they've paid the price. But their return is inevitable. We must turn this into more than a victory. We must turn it into respect." Engineers and scouts nodded. Every human on Vera 9 had a role, and every role mattered. From mining tunnels repurposed for strategy to shuttles modified for distraction, each tool of survival now became a symbol of human ingenuity. The Zorath, frustrated and shaken, had begun sending messages through hacked communication channels. They demanded surrender, but their tone betrayed fear and uncertainty. Mara studied the messages carefully. "They don't respect strength alone. They fear it. But if we respond with intelligence, they'll respect us." Her team launched a controlled series of countermeasures. They intercepted Zorath communications, rerouted supply lines, and displayed human creativity in every interaction. Drones moved with purpose, traps operated with precision, and surface teams used terrain to confuse and outmaneuver alien units. Every action reinforced the human superiority, not through brute force but through thought, preparation, and adaptability. By midday, small Zorath scouting groups began to withdraw entirely. The humans' strategy of psychological and tactical superiority was working. Mara watched from the observation deck as the aliens hesitated near the outer rim of the colony, unsure whether to advance or retreat. "Today," Mara told Jax, "we do more than defend. Today we demonstrate that humans are a species to be respected. Not feared blindly, but respected for strategy, courage, and unity." Surface teams moved quickly, repairing minor damage and reinforcing defensive positions while maintaining readiness for any Zorath movement. Mara led a final strike team to monitor the retreating enemy. Using subtle interference and controlled signals, they ensured the Zorath left without causing significant damage. but with a lasting impression of human competence. By evening, the Zorath ships had left Vera 9 entirely. Their morale was shattered, and their commanders were forced to reconsider their assumptions about humans. Across the galaxy, whispers would spread about the species that had resisted and outsmarted one of the most feared factions in known space. Back in the colony, Mara addressed her people. Today we have done more than survive. We have shown that humans are clever, adaptable, and united. We have taught an important lesson. Never underestimate our species. The settlers cheered quietly, proud, but not boastful. Engineers, miners, pilots, and militia members alike had contributed to this victory. Each human, regardless of role, had been essential to the success. They had learned that cooperation, ingenuity, and determination could overcome overwhelming odds. Jax leaned against the console, smiling. They'll never forget this, will they? No, Mara replied, looking toward the stars. And the rest of the galaxy will remember too. Humans are not just survivors. We are thinkers, strategists, and a species that refuses to be dominated. Night fell on Vera 9, calm and peaceful for the first time in days. The colony glowed softly, a beacon of human resilience in the black of space. Mara walked among her people, offering encouragement and listening to their stories of clever maneuvers and moments of bravery. Every human contribution had mattered, and every individual understood the power of unity and intellect. Mara returned to the observation deck one last time, gazing at the stars. We will face challenges again, she whispered. Other species, other dangers. But we are ready, because humans adapt, humans endure, and humans never, ever underestimate the power of their own spirit. Somewhere in the distant Zorath fleet, commanders recorded their losses and failures. The galaxy would now know that humanity was not to be underestimated, that under pressure humans could outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast even the most formidable enemies. Respect, earned through courage and intellect, had replaced fear, and it was more enduring than any weapon. Mara smiled faintly. She knew the truth of it. Humans were capable of more than strength, more than speed, and more than firepower. Their greatest weapon was their mind, their unity, and their unwavering determination. And the lesson was simple. Big mistake. You picked a fight with the wrong species. The humans of Vera 9 had not only survived, they had won the respect of the galaxy. And they had shown that even in the darkest corners of space, the human spirit shone brighter than any enemy could hope to extinguish.